welcome to another review with a brew, and today's blend is breakfast tea. So nothing quite as extravagant as China tea or Assam. Why do you need a specialist tea when you have a specialist car? The Honda logo, 3-door, and it wasn't available in the UK for very long. I think it was about 6 months. And it was literally a stopgap before the Jazzes started flowing in. But it stands on its own. It's quite tall, it's quite thin, but it also shares quite a lot of bits with the Civic as well, including the door handles, the mirrors, and the grille's not that far different either. Production started in 1996 in Japan, and then they ran till 2001. But as I mentioned, you could get one briefly between 2000 and 2001 as a stopgap for the Jazz. I like it.
The Honda logo was an interesting choice as a stopgap car, as it was never destined for the UK market. Replaced by the Honda Fit in 2001, or as we know it, the Jazz. There were various trims available in the JDM, however Honda chose to import 2 trims to the UK, the Base and the SE. In Japan you could get anything from a 4-wheel drive to a Sportic. The UK spec logo generates 66 brake horsepower, around 110 Newton meters of torque, and gets you from 0 to 60 in about 14 seconds.
It's a quirky little car, and more to the point, it's rare, and I like rare vehicles. The Honda logo is based on the Generation 1 Civic, and it kind of makes sense when you look at the shaping and the dimensions and the style. It has a taller window line. It shares some of its looks with the Civic that we've got, and I think it's actually the same colour, which is quite remarkable. A 3-door Japanese car that invariably looks a little K car. Yes, comparing these headlamps to the Civics, these are taller and not as narrow, or maybe they're the same height but just slightly narrower. You've also got clear lenses on this as well. Let's have a look. These are definitely wider. That makes sense because that's the kind of car that the Japanese market wanted. 3-door little city cars, and that's what this is. It's a Super Mini. Now this one's for sale. So if you're interested, drop a comment on here and we'll get in touch with Christian for you and see if we can get you behind the wheel. Now you'll have a job finding a logo, but you'll have even more of a job finding a logo that is this standard. The styling's very of the late 90s, early 2000s. You've got a nice big window, your Honda badge there, and a fog lamp that's recessed into the rear bumper. And look, a standard exhaust. You've got colour-coded bumpers, Beasting aerial, Steelies with Honda wheel trims, and they're 13-inch. You can get a 3-door, you can get a 5-door. You could get an 8-valve or a 16-valve, and they're all powered by a 1.3. Look at that. Looks to me like a D-series engine. Lots of interesting things on this car. For example, this goes there. And if you were wanting to buy one back in about 2000, it would cost you between £8,000 and £10,000. And this is a 2-wheel drive, but they also offered a 4-wheel drive as well. Stepping in, nice and easy, decent ride height. Now, when you get in, it just encompasses everything from JDM back in the late 90s. Interesting door card, quite a bit different to the Civic. Electric windows. But the thing about Honda, and especially things like our Civic, you had like soft touches on the door in different styles. Now you've got more of a vinyl-y kind of plastic in the Civic, whereas this is like a, I don't quite know what you call that material. You've got like a hard plastic here, but it's overlaid with this stylish kind of cloth. It's really thrown me, this car, because I've never actually seen anything like that that's been strictly Japanese domestic market. Like I said, it sold for 6 months, but that was it. Before that, no one had ever even heard of the logo in this country, except the odd enthusiast. Cockpit-wise, 2 dials, you've got a rev counter on the left, and you've got red needles. I like that, gives it a nice sporty feel. I love the simplicity of the design. Yes, hard plastics, but these dials, I quite like the switchgear on a 90s Honda. There's something dependable about it. Yes, okay, things like this happen, but we're talking a car that's coming up to about 20 years old. It's just so cool. You could tell that Honda were always on point. They had interesting things that you just wouldn't find in a UK car. For example, cup holders. You won't find those in the Civic. 5-speed manual gearbox, and look, electric mirrors, just like the Civic. Interestingly, they're positioned here on this, and on the right hand side on the Civic. Nice storage pot here, and airbags as well. Comfortable seats, very basic style, but perfect for this type of car. And down here, like the Civic, you have the bonnet pop and the petrol cap release. Now with my seat at this position, I'm not going to get in the back, but if I pull it forward, I could drive like this. So, see how easy it is to climb into the back of the Logo. Okay, I'm going to have to get in a bit like this. But yes, I'm in. It's quite comfortable in here. And as I mentioned before, this high window means I've got, look at that, decent headroom in a Super Mini. Let's go around and see what the practicality is like in the boot. This review may be a bit clunky because this is the kind of first car that I've done of this age, so this is uncharted territory for me. Let's try and open the boot. And look, a key, just like the Civic key. Super mini size boot, makes sense. 60/40 folding seats and a boot lip here. Drop the seats and you have a fair bit of room. Quite easily get a mountain bike in there with, say, no wheels. Pulling the seats down. Ah, yes, very 90s. Pull up this. The thing about the Logo is it's a nice quirky JDM car that stands out, and you will not see many on the road, if any. It's only a matter of time until these start going up in price. But it feels good. Let's see how it goes. This car is NCAP 3. As I mentioned before, it's got quite a few toys on it. For example, it's got ABS, it's got air conditioning, it's power assisted steering, remote central locking was available, and if you opted for the automatic, that was 3-speed. You also had the 5-speed manual that we've got, and a CVT as well. Yes, this reminds me of the Civic. Except, I think it feels a touch quicker, to be honest. 5-speed manual. Yes, you get road noise in here, but let's face it, it's a late 90s Honda. Handling wise, because it's a small car, it's got a wheel at each corner, it handles quite well. Quite a weighted steering too. And you can launch out of the junction if you need to. I like the fact it's got a rev counter too. Getting up to speed on A roads and B roads is no problem whatsoever. There is a bit of lean, but it's quite a high car. And the suspension feels... it's good at road holding, but at the same time it's quite soft as well, so yes, you're not going to get away from the body roll. But no, I could have fun in one of these, especially if you slammed it on a set of 13s, which are about 9J. Fantastic. Economy wise, you're looking at between 40 and 45 to the gallon. Now likelihood is I will get closer to about 35, but we know I have a lead foot. The thing about 90s cars, and even though this is low mileage at 70,000, you still have a bit of play, but when it's in gear, it feels fine. It's a nice smooth gearbox. Quite interestingly, it's quite a tall shifter as well. I would have expected it to be shorter, but overall, it's an interesting driving experience, it really is.
And finally, it's not a K car, even though it looks like one. So if you're after one now, you're looking at a couple of grand. That's if you can find one. Or you can just import one.
And there you have it, the Honda Logo. Thanks for joining me for a review with a Brew, and we'll have another interesting car next week. Thank you for seeing you.